Now we're going to talk about the drunk scene in Jake's apartment. So this is when we get into Jake's bedroom and he's drunk and just came back from the bar. And the first thing we're going to show you is what it looks like with 12 decibels of gain, 60-watt bulb in the ceiling fan, and a 40-watt bulb in the desk lamp. I'm going to show you this whole thing. You can watch the whole thing with just nothing but 12 decibels of gain. I want to show you exactly what it would look like if you'd arrived in a location like this where it's an interior scene and you just wanted to use existing lighting. And also, it's going to allow us to look at the shadows. You see that shadow on his left side? And also her shadow right there on her left side as well too. Whenever we study by using gain what normally a shot is going to look like with normal lighting inside of that room, we can kind of figure out where we're going to motivate our lights from to make it kind of look like that, but nicer. Because obviously we don't want everything to be burned out like that. We don't want the highlights underneath the lamp to be burned out. We don't want his forehead to be burned out. We don't want it to be grainy like that. We actually want to light it to make it look nice. But at least this gives us a starting point so that we can have some kind of an idea of where the lighting would normally come from in this particular situation. So here's our DP, and he's got two monitors up right now. He's got the professional monitor on the left-hand side, and he's also got the consumer monitor on the right-hand side. And he keeps going back and forth between them to see the difference in the dynamic range between both monitors. The one on the left is displaying more dynamic range. The one on the right is displaying less dynamic range, but it also kind of shows you what you're losing. There's only one thing better than having one professional monitor on the set, and that's having a professional monitor and a consumer monitor. That way you can kind of get an idea of what you're getting for real on the left side, and you're kind of get an idea of what a consumer would see at home on the right-hand side. Now also, look at this duvetine that we have, this black material that's hanging all the way to the ceiling. We hung that up there so that you can't see from inside the room. If we ever do the reverse angle, you can't see that this is the exact same apartment that we're using for everything all at the same time. So we hung up all that black material to cover up those types of walls that are in the hallway. Also, this is the HMI right here that we're using to test the lighting. We hung it up there just to see if it would work first of all, and also just to kind of use it to test the lighting and see if we like where the lighting is coming from that particular direction. Eventually we wrapped it up and saved it for the next day because we realized it was kind of a little bit too much for the scene. We didn't really need it that much. There's a camera right there, and there's our position for take one. At least our test position, we changed it a little bit after that. Let's watch the guys rehearsing right now. And go for it.
What are you doing?
I'm gonna finish typing something.
Why am I here?
Can you help me type juxtaposition?
Okay. J. U. I don't know how to spell that word. Come on. Come on.
Okay, so that was our first rehearsal. Notice that we switched her body over to the right-hand side, but we also wanted to make sure that she's really careful not to cover him up with her shadow. You see that where her shadow is right there on the left-hand side of the frame? If she leans forward too much, you're not going to be able to see Jake at that point, and he is the main character. We don't want to cover him up. So you always have to manage your blocking to make sure that your secondary characters in the frame don't cover up your primary characters that the audience is trying to have sympathy for. So this is another shot that we did for you that has very poor lighting. We just took the worst lighting we could possibly do, the worst framing we could possibly do. Notice you can't see her in the frame. You have to kind of pan to the right to see her in the frame there. And we're going to show you kind of how it would look like if you walked on the set and you didn't really think about where everybody is and how to frame everybody up. Notice how we cut off the top of her head there. We have to tilt up, and then we lose him a little bit, and then he kind of ducks down over there on the left-hand side, and just everything looks really horrible, So, and then he just stands up and walks to the bed, even though he's supposed to be drunk. He just kind of pushes him in. So we did this for you just kind of as an example of what it would look like if you didn't really coach your actors and didn't worry about the framing or the blocking or anything like that. And now we're going to go ahead and move the HMI over to the right-hand side and save it for tomorrow because we don't really need it anymore. And that particular clamp that we're using is a Lowell clamp right there, and we have a piece of cloth underneath it right there, which allows us to clamp it to that door without actually damaging the door. It's just a piece of black duvetine. You should always be careful when you're shooting in these interiors, especially if someone is loaning you this particular location, not to damage anything in the location. You want to guard their doors, windows, floors, everything from any kind of damage. So there's the HMI, and it's being saved for tomorrow. We don't really need it anymore. We just wanted to kind of test the lighting from it. We went ahead and replaced it with this Chimera, and it's on top of a 300 watt tungsten Fresnel. So this is just a regular tungsten Fresnel, 300 watts, and that also lowered the ambient light enough that it made the actors feel more comfortable on that particular location in that set at night. We kind of wanted it to be more cozy, like, you know, for the actual scene, and this allowed us to do that. This is a light switch that we're using right there, and of course when you flip this light switch, nothing's going to happen because we took the bulb out of the ceiling fan. So this is our light gag. When you flip the light switch, we had an assistant out there with this light right there, and they would turn off and on that fill light right there up in the top. Rolling and action rehearsal.
Have a seat.
Where'd you go to sleep?
Next time I'm gonna plop down there. I wanna write a story.
Right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so that got us the benefit of a little bit better lighting, a little bit better blocking, but it still doesn't feel right. I mean, it doesn't feel like a sculpted frame. We still don't have that nice lighting that feels like it's a nice interior. There's no warmth to it or ambiance or mood to it at all. And also, I didn't like the fact that there was a little bit of a lack of a contrast range in the frame too. So first thing we did is went ahead and started dropping some scrim into the 300 watt light to see if we can kind of knock it down a little bit and get the intensity down and allow the other lights around there to maybe have a little bit more impact. So when we scrim down the 300 watt light, that means that it's allowing us to make the other lights around it more prominent by opening up the iris of the camera some more. So here's the DP adding a triple. As we can see, that was a blue rimmed scrim, which is a triple, and there's the effect of that triple going in right there. So you can see that the fill light is going down in intensity and it's creating a little bit more of a mood because it's allowing the key lights to have a little more of an effect. So this is no scrim right there. I'm going to show you all the scrims again one more time. This is no scrim right there. This is single scrim. That's double scrim. And finally, we have triple scrim, which is what we ended up going with because it really allowed the 150 watt lights we were using as key lights to become more prominent. And now we're going to do the gamma settings. This is Cinelike D Gamma Cinematrix. We're going to try all different ones. Cinelike V Gamma Cinematrix, Cinelike D Gamma Normal Matrix, Cinelike V Gamma Normal Matrix, and also Cinelike D Gamma Fluoromatrix, and Cinelike V Gamma Fluoromatrix. And never mind Jake there because he's totally in character and he's had a very long day. So we settled on Cinelike V Gamma Cinematrix, which is of course one of our favorite settings that we really like for all of our interiors when we're trying to create more of a mood and we're trying to establish, you know, the wood grain that's in that desk and the depth of the color in the bed and in the walls. Cinelike V Gamma really works for us. So here's our first key light right there. The HMI back there, I just want to keep showing it to you because I want to let you know that it's not being used. Even though it's back there, it's just ready for tomorrow's scenes. We're not actually using it in the shot, in this particular shot. We're using this one right here, this RE150, which is Jake's key light. He has his own key light for this shot because he's in a whole different position as she is, as Rachel, and therefore because of their separation in space, they require different key lights. Otherwise, we just wouldn't have one light that would be able to hit both of them in just that right angle. So we're adjusting the 150 right now, and I want to show you what it's doing to Jake when we adjust the 150 up and down like that. Watch that slash that it's making. It's kind of like a slash across, like a horizontal slash across him. And what it's doing is it's actually mimicking the light that the practical would normally be generating. So now, this is Rachel's key light, and notice that it's pretty much in the same sort of corner of the room. It's towards the left side of the room, but further to the left, and this is what's hitting her from the left side of the room. And it's also doing the same kind of thing on her, where when we go ahead and tilt it up and down, watch what happens to her. Watch the shadows on the back wall, and watch the slash, like that horizontal slash across. There it is right there. And like I said, both these lights are matching the light pattern from the desk lamp, because it would normally be a thin slit of light coming in from underneath the lamp and going across in a vertical manner. Now we also noticed that we had a little bit of a corner right there in the top right hand corner of the barn door, and we straightened it out because it didn't feel right. We wanted to make sure that it was a straight corner. And also it was balanced off to the left hand side, and we rotate it to the right to make sure that it's straight, up and down like that. So here we are behind the scenes. We're going to show you the positions of the lights. This is the camera right there with the boom mic. And here's our key for Rachel. This is Rachel's key light right there. And there's Jake's key light right there, right in front of us. And it's pointing directly pretty much over the camera almost at him. And now the last light that we're going to look at in this particular intermission right now is we're going to look at the fill light. And that's the fill light again. That's a 300 watt light, and it has a triple scrim inside it, knocking it down a stop and a half in intensity, allowing the 150 watt lights, those two key lights, to become even more prominent. And that's what it's hitting. It's creating really no major shadows, creating a little bit of a shadow, but not so much of a shadow, because it's an acceptable shadow because it's supposed to be coming from that ceiling fan. We already established the ceiling fan as being a light source, so it's okay for us to have a light source up in the top right hand corner of the room acting as that ceiling fan. So there's our frame right there, and it looks really nice and moody. It has a lot of depth to it. It has a lot of contrast to it, and it feels right. Everything feels right. You can see her face and his face in comparison to where we started, which was this is the bad frame that we shot for you guys, that bad scene. And when you look at it, at that scene, and kind of concentrate on it a little bit, and then look back at this scene, it's a major difference. I mean, that's what sculpting your lighting would feel. Notice that she has a double shadow behind her. That's an acceptable double shadow. The reason being is that you've got one light coming from the ceiling fan, you've got another light right there at the desk lamp. They're going to both cross, and they're going to create a double shadow in a tiny room like that. So that is an acceptable double shadow to have in this particular circumstance. As long as you establish that there are two light sources in the room creating those shadows, the audience will accept it. They will not, think that that's bad. You see that shadow right there from the pull cord for the actual ceiling fan? We keep fidgeting with it, trying to throw it up there, because that's a dead giveaway that we're actually lighting the set, but not the light itself in the ceiling fan. So remember on take 2, he was wearing a little bit more of a lighter colored t-shirt, and in take 1, he was wearing that black shirt, that black sweater, and which kind of blended too much with the background. We had him change it. So here we are adding a light panel as a light gag for the actual laptop, so that when he turns on the laptop, the DP actually had a little switch next to him, and he would actually make like that's a laptop coming on. Yeah, and just reminding you that David is in character right there, so please forgive him. He's in character, and I'm not going to knock him out of it just to do some lighting. He needs to be in character for a scene. So this is what the light panel is doing right there. We're going to dim it up and down to show you exactly what he's doing. He's not actually drunk, he's just in character. And there's where the light is coming from, and it's kind of hitting him. And we left the light blue. And don't forget, the light panels are actually bluish in tone because they're daylight balanced. So we allowed them to be blue. We did not balance it with the rest of the lights inside the room. We didn't put any orange gel in it to balance it. So it feels like it's blue light coming from the laptop monitor. Because normally if you had the laptop monitor on there, that LCD, it would have absolutely no effect in the scene. It is so dim that it would not affect the scene any one bit at all when he would turn on the laptop. So you have to augment it or enhance that lighting somehow so that it actually is visible. So there's that lighting right there. This is before we started actually doing the light gag. He would actually sit down and the light would already be on at the laptop. Okay, now let's talk about some composition. So let's look at the shot when they come in. She's going to walk him in, and they're going to sit down. We're going to talk about the triangles here in just a second, because I know that's a little bit of a confusing subject for some people. So when he sits down at this very position right there, he's going to have a line that goes from his head over to her head. They're pretty much about at the same level when you look at it as being traveling in depth just a little bit. She's slightly higher. And this is going to change dramatically here in just a second. And you got to always remember the reason we're demonstrating this is that some character, if you want him to, as part of the story, can dominate the frame. And that can add drama to the moment. Now watch her get up right there. Now when she gets up and she leans up over him like that, that creates a whole different dynamic. She becomes the dominant character in the frame. And the reason we wanted her to be the dominant character in the frame is because she's helping him make a positive change in his life. By being part of his life, she's allowing him to kind of move forward in his life and become a better person. So it's alright for her to dominate this particular scene because he's drunk, he feels like he's failing, he's not going anywhere. She's here, she's helping him out. We wanted all that to be visually obvious as well too, not just in the action or in their dialogue, but also in the way that we handled the camera. We could have had her not. We could have had her kind of sit next to him. We could have had her. We could have had him a little bit higher. There's a lot of things we could have done, but we chose to do it that way. It's a choice. You do it every single time. You exercise a creative choice, and when you exercise a creative choice in that manner, in a way that helps the story, you're going to end up with a better story altogether. In this particular situation, again, she is definitely the dominant character in the frame. Look at that triangle and the way it's kind of leaning in and back with her at the same time. She is dominant, but at the same time, he's still the main character because he's still the focus. We can't really see her face. It's his face that we're concentrating on. So as soon as we wrapped that particular scene, we went ahead and switched gears to a whole other scene in the exact same situation. This is a new scene, same lighting, same camera position. So this is when he comes in with a mug of coffee and he tries to sit down and wake himself up. And, he figures that if he can just wake himself up enough, he could actually start writing again. So he sits down with his coffee and he tries to type again and it doesn't work out for him. So all we did is we just pulled her out of the frame and just put him in there by himself, pretty much the same everything else. But because it occurs at a different time in the script and in the actual movie, people aren't really going to draw a lot of parallels. Oh wow, this is the exact same angle that they used for this other scene. It's too separated from it. And at the same time, why wouldn't it be the same angle and the same lighting? I mean, while we got the lighting and the angle set up, might as well do all these scenes from this master shot and just have them. I mean, even if we end up doing something creative later and only just use the close-up, but at least we have the master shot of this particular scene and it works. It's the same lighting. I mean, he's got the same desk lamp and he's got the same ceiling fan lamp, and they're always going to be lighting this room in the exact same way at night. So we might as well get all the shots that we need while we have them. We just have them do a wardrobe change and we do all the things that we need from this particular angle and we move on. When you move the camera, you never have to go back to this camera position ever. That's it, if you get all your stuff. And that's how you take a 2-day shoot that we did in this particular location and you shoot 8 days worth of stuff in 2 days by not moving the camera every single time, and also by having flexible actors that can do that kind of a thing. Like the way David is in this situation where he's very responsive, and if I say, okay, well, we're switching gears right now, we're going to do one shot from this angle so we can save time, and I'd like for you to do this scene. He says, oh yeah, great, give me 5 minutes to rehearse it and I'll be right back. And he does it and it's done. Now let's talk composition again. There's Jake and he is the weak character in the frame. He is being completely trumped in height by that lampshade in the left-hand side of the frame, and he appears so small in the frame and so kind of powerless. Now when he gets up, that's a whole different story. Usually when people get up, especially after being seated and frustrated, that means they're trying to commit to some kind of an action. They're trying to figure something out or do something. They are becoming masters of their own destiny. And when he goes into that kind of a mode, he becomes again the dominant character in the frame. And the lampshade has been trumped and so is the computer. He's higher than both of them. He's kind of taking a bird's eye view of the situation and trying to figure out his next move. Now, in this particular situation, of course, he can't figure anything out. But it's visually, the camera is accompanying him visually along his voyage of self-discovery, of trying to figure out, okay, well, I can do this. Well, maybe I can't do it. All right, no, maybe I can do it. No, I can't do it. The camera can come along visually with this voyage of introspection, especially in a movie like this, which was almost entirely narrated. It's nice to have the camera helping you tell the story as you go along. Okay, so this is the same scene, same lighting, new camera position, so it's a new shot. Remember, when you change the camera position or the framing, it's a new shot. If you're just starting and stopping the camera, it's just another take. But if you change the camera position or change the framing or the angle, then it's a new shot. So in this particular situation, you see that light panel right there in front of the monitor, in front of the LCD of the laptop. That's because we had the laptop rotated in this direction. At first we didn't see it, but then we caught it in the production monitor. So we had our actor rotate the laptop. We didn't go and actually move the camera off to the right side. We didn't do anything lighting wise. It's just blocking. We just blocked the prop differently. So now this is the same scene, same lighting, new camera position, so it's a new shot. We just changed the camera position and the framing, And that's all it is. So it's a new shot. It's not another take. It's not another scene. It's the same scene, same lighting. So after this, we went ahead and panned the camera over to the right-hand side, and we took another shot of him actually getting into the bed. So it's the same scene, same lighting, new camera position, new shot. Not another take. This is a new shot, same scene, same lighting. Sorry to keep repeating this, but I just want to make sure that it's in your mind, because I use shot and take interchangeably sometimes, but I want you to be able to tell the difference and know what I mean when I mean it. Okay, so let's talk about composition now. Watch him where his position is. There's a rectangle on his left side being framed by the laptop. There's a rectangle on his right side being made by that frame up on the wall. He's framed by solid frames. These are rectangles that are kind of surrounding him on both sides. Now, there's also a line that goes across the frame behind him that kind of bisects his body into left and right sides. Kind of like the way he's confused, between what to figure out what to do. And there's also an inverted triangle being made because he's tilting his head down, because of the V-neck in his shirt. There's an inverted triangle that is being caused in actual physical space from those frames down into his chin, across the V-neck, and over to the laptop. So now, this is going to be the former scene, same lighting, same camera position, new shot, continues the drunk scene. So after we got the camera into that position in that particular lighting, we brought Rachel back, and we had her do her close-up. So that's how we conserve time. I mean, you conserve time by moving the camera only when you need to, and actually dropping the characters into that shot. Remember that line that used to bisect Jake across his body, kind of like indecision? Well, now it's not anymore. It's actually on the left side along the left third of the frame. The top of her head is making another line at the top third of the frame, and also the frame from that picture on the right-hand side, as you can see, is also making a third line on the right-hand side of the third of the frame. So we saved the harmonized frame for her, and we left him kind of in the unharmonized frame where he was bisected in the middle. We matched her with the law of thirds. We put her, everything is exactly in the correct spot. She's in the right-hand third of the frame. There's a line on the left-hand third of the frame. And also we adjusted her headroom. Notice how there's so much headroom up there, and her chin is too close to the bottom of the frame. It just doesn't feel like it's framed right. So we adjusted it, and we tilted the camera down, and therefore now she's properly framed, where the top of her head's close to the top, and her chin is far away from the bottom of the frame. Now also, you've been watching this whole time, and you didn't know that I was actually holding a light panel the entire time we were shooting her close-ups next to the right side of her head, and actually creating a rim light on her hair with a light panel. And I actually did not change the color temperature of the light panel. I left it blue, which is its natural color. It's daylight balanced, rather than changing it to orange, because I wanted the light that actually hits her hair to be even more blue than normal. It's just a creative choice. It just felt like it was right, and it made for a really nice close-up because it felt like there was white light hitting her hair from the side, and it wasn't like golden light, so we weren't trying to kind of fake warm up the set. So now we went ahead and changed the position of the camera. This is from the position for her close-up over to this position right here next to this pile of clothing, which is, that's the way the set is supposed to be. He's supposed to be very disorganized. And we were able to do the former scene, which is the drunk scene, same lighting, new camera position, which is a new shot, and it continues the drunk scene. So this is the former scene, the drunk scene, same lighting, new camera position, new shot. So we were able to do at first the drunk scene, then we switched gears and we did the thing where he comes back with the coffee mug. Then we switched gears back again, back to the drunk scene. And this is only to curtail for the camera, so that the camera doesn't have to move for every individual scene back and forth, back and forth. We just park it in the right spot. We do everything we need to do from that particular angle. Then we move to the next spot. That's how we did it, and we were able to get done with this entire location and everything that we shot in all the bedrooms and the living room and the kitchen, everything in 2 days. Okay, so this is also the former scene, same lighting, same camera position, same shot, new take. We're just stopped the camera, and now we're starting it again, and therefore that's a new take. It's not a new shot. Okay, another thing we're going to talk about here is character blocking and how it helps with framing. Notice how you cannot see the left side of his face in this particular take 2. And now we're going to go back to take 1 and show you what it used to look like. There's take 1. You could just barely see a little bit of his left side of his face right there, but it wasn't cleanly bisecting his face along the center of the nose. So now we're going to go ahead and create symmetry again by going back to that framing. You see how there's symmetry there? To me, what that creates is it makes the audience want to kind of lean to the right side and see what's going on the other side of the face. But if they were to see his left eye, they wouldn't need to do that anymore. Okay, so now let's talk about, again, composition. This is take one. Watch where her face was. We didn't have her lean in far enough, so the blocking was bad. Now on take two, we didn't want to adjust the camera. We didn't want to do anything. All we did was just adjust her blocking. We just had her lean down further into the frame, which made it an even cozier shot anyhow. It actually worked out in the end much better. Now here's composition again. She is once again the dominant character in the frame. In all the medium shots and the wide shots that we did for the scene before, she was also the dominant character in the frame. We continued that theme all the way along. We didn't choose a camera angle that defied the logic from the other shots as well too. So it's really important to also keep that kind of the framing ideology. Once you come up with an ideology for a scene, keep that framing ideology all the way through the entire scene so that it makes sense. Unless there's a shift in the paradigm of the scene. Like for instance, if they're having an argument and then he actually gets up taller or yells louder or moves around when she's steady, then that kind of shifts the dominant theme over to him instead of to her, and then she can kind of shift it again by, I don't know, stamping her foot down or, hitting the wall or something like that, and then also takes the dominance of the scene back to her again. So now we did one more angle. Notice where the camera tripod is right there. And this is new scene, same lighting, new camera position, new shot. So this continues that other new scene that we had started, where he was by himself and he was drinking coffee. And notice how we're having him lean into the shot. Because when you have your actor lean into the shot, again, you can cut on motion. And when you can cut on motion, you can cover up any kind of errors in costumes or acting or body positions or blocking in any way, shape, or form. So once again, why do we pick this angle? Because high angle camera diminishes character. And also watch where his eye line is looking to the bottom left-hand side of the frame. That's really important because we already discussed the axes of movement and also the invisible axes that are made by the character looking in a certain direction, the look axis. So when you have all these things in your mind and you're trying to select a shot, this starts to make sense when you can actually frame it in that position. Now watch what happens when he lays down and he puts his arm. He could have put his arm down on his sides. He could have rolled on his side. He could have done a million different things, but we had him put his arms in that particular configuration because it made a downwards facing triangle. Remember, you're not looking at a character lying down. You're looking at a two-dimensional object. Your mind is always looking at a two-dimensional object, and the shape in the frame has to satisfy the shape in the scene. He's feeling low right now, so we made him a downward facing triangle to make him feel even lower for the camera, from the camera's perspective, and to aid the storyline, to actually aid the storytelling process. Okay, this is again Jake's apartment. This is the scene where he falls asleep trying to write. So now we're going to be attaching a grip clamp to the door. So we're using a Matthews mini grip kit, and that's that head right there that you see. It's called a knuckle. And once we actually tighten that up with the extension arm, we have another gobo holder at the end of it. And a gobo is kind of like a photographic term, and sometimes the cinematographers borrow that term. But a gobo is really any kind of modifier that you can put in front of a light. This is actually DP silk. I guess that was water damage, and that's why it has those stains up in the top left-hand corner. And so the HMI right there is shining through the silk that has been attached to that door frame. And you'll notice that even when the DP changes lenses and puts a flood lens in there, the light is still very contrasty and very sourcey, even though it's going through that silk. You can see when the actor puts up his hand there, that it says a hard shadow on the wall. So what the DP did, he added another piece of diffusion right in front of the light so that it gets diffused before it even enters into the silk. And you can see the effect on the actor. This is before. Watch the shadow. Bam. There's the effect. Look at how soft that shadow is. It almost looks like we did something in Photoshop to the frame. This is the light in the room without the HMI. You can see there's not much light. It's kind of moody, but that's not what we're going for. We're going for a nicer, more filled in look on this particular shot. Now here's the DP, and he's replacing the diffusion that was inside the 200 watt HMI sitting on the desk right there with thicker diffusion. And as you can see, there's going to be absolutely no hot spot in the frame at all, where it's completely soft. And I iris down to show you that very clearly. So this is with half diffusion. You can see that there's a hot spot right there in the center of the diffusion. And now we went ahead and put in the full diffusion. Notice that there's no more hot spot in the frame. And because you can't see the bulb, that means the subject can't see the bulb either, so it becomes a softer light. It becomes a larger, softer light. Now look at the framing. You see how he's just occupying a very small part of the frame? And that's not what we were trying to go for in this particular circumstance. We wanted him to be a little bit more centered. We didn't want him to be quite so far off to the left-hand side. So the DP prepared another one of those suction cups, and he kind of just laid it down on the desk. It's not actually going to attach itself to the desk because the suction cup won't actually attach itself to wood, but it serves as kind of like a broad foot for it, the back foot, and then the front of the chimera will support the rest of the weight of the 200-watt light. Certain things happen quickly, and certain things like this, they require time and patience to get it just right, and also so as not to damage anything, including the equipment. Now we can widen out our frame. We're able to pan to the left a little bit more, and there's the camera position right there with the DP. And we've noticed also that we were losing light levels outside after a certain time. So we went ahead and added the internal baffle onto the chimera. Internal baffle is kind of like that diffusion, where it's just internal diffusion inside the actual chimera, and what it does, it gives another layer of diffusion for the light to hit before it actually goes out to the outside layer of diffusion. There are many different ways to do what we just did. That's just one way. It just softens the light a little bit more and it cuts it down by a little bit of intensity. We could have added ND gel, neutral density gel, to the outside. We could have added net, black net to the outside. That would have done the same thing. It's just one way to accomplish it. So now we're trying to show you exactly where we started and where we ended up in the frame. So this was the old shot. Notice how that lampshade was too bright and the lamp was too dark. And also, he had very little side light, but mostly it was coming from the right-hand side, and there wasn't enough light on the desk. Notice how that lampshade is very dark, which is actually very good. That's what we're trying to go for. And also, the lamp itself is bright because it's being lit by its own light. And also, he has side light on the left side, and you can see some light on the desk. That feels right. The other one felt fake. This feels right. It feels like it's actually being motivated from the outside window light, which is really important. It's important to follow the motivation of the scene. Now, the other thing that we did is we just kind of lowered the tripod just a little bit, and we leveled it. Leveling the tripod means adjusting that ball leveler right there so that the bubble level right there, which is being eliminated on this Vinton head, pretty much arrives right there in the dead center of the actual level. And once it is in that particular position, you know for a fact that your verticals will actually be vertical. Now let's talk composition again. See how he comes into the room, and we're looking up at him. And he's going to go ahead and sit down. And in that body position, in that particular blocking, because we can't see the top of that lamp right there, the lampshade on the left-hand side, it allows Jake to dominate the frame. Watch the triangular configuration right there. There's the triangles that is being made in the set right now, from his elbow to the top of his head over down to the desk. If we had seen the lampshade up in the top left-hand corner of the frame, it would have pretty much trumped him as far as height. It would have stolen the show, and it would have actually taken over as the dominant item in the frame. As far as composition is concerned, we're not talking about two actors competing for dominance here. This is actually just compositionally speaking, it takes up the compositional weight of the frame. And also we talked about the fact that the left-hand side of the frame can always support more weight, and that's why that lamp is going to be in the left-hand side of the frame, and it's going to feel balanced. It's going to feel just fine. So now we're moving to a close-up angle right now. We have to move to a close-up angle because from the medium shot, the angle would not look good. And also don't forget, every time you want to move to another shot, you don't want to make it feel like a jump cut, you got to change your height, framing, and angle every single time. And you'll notice that we're putting in a little blocker so we can block the light from the actual lamp. And you can't see the light actually hitting the lamp itself from the 200 watt HMI right there. Okay, so you can see how Jake is walking in from the right-hand side of the frame right there, which is the correct side because we were established already on the left side as being the camera side. So when he comes in from the left side, that would cross the eye line. That's how easy it is sometimes to cross the eye line, and then you can't use that actual cut on the motion. You would have to cut after he actually gets in and sits in the chair. So now also we selected this particular angle so that when he actually sits down to type, notice how we were making another triangular configuration with his body, which matches when he was up in the wide shot, the triangular configuration in that particular shot as well. There's nothing else in the frame competing with him. There's no other objects or frames or anything else in that image competing with him for dominance of the frame. Now, of course, when he goes to sleep, we once again have a downwards facing triangle exactly in keeping with the wide shot as well too. And also don't forget to have your actress sit into the close-up like we showed you before, because it allows you to have some imperfections from the wide shot to the close-up, not produce a jump cut. So there's the DP now. He's moving the tripod a little bit further to the left so that he can actually get a better shot on just the keyboard by itself. There's a shot. We have the light panel down right in front of the fingers, and we're going to dim it just the right intensity so that it fills in the shadows without actually creating any new ones. So there's the angle of the camera. You can see it. So we wanted to get just Jake's fingers typing into the keyboard. That was the shot. That was the action from the script. So we turn on the light panels, and we dim them to just such an intensity where it would actually round out the light coming in from the outside, from the window, without actually taking away from it or, just overpowering it. So due to the proximity of the light panel to his fingers, we just barely had to dim it up just a little bit to get that kind of intensity on him. And we got it from another angle as well too. That's a little bit more three-dimensional. And this is going to be a shot when we just had no lighting. This is just that indoor lamp right there. And here it is with a lot of gain. This is the actual angle that I first imagined when I wrote the script. It was a very shallow angle, very close to the keyboard surface. And I imagined the fingers would just come in from the right-hand side of the frame and just start typing with a lot of symmetry in the frame. So that's what I originally imagined, but we shot all the other ones just kind of as backup and also for coverage, so that in case we need them at different parts of the script, we can still use them, which they ended up coming in really handy. And the DP was having a lot of problems in the last shot, trying to keep focus between when Jake was typing and then when he would go to that mouse in the center of the keyboard. So he made himself some markers, some actual focus markers, and we're going to go ahead and watch him doing that for a second. Got it. There's one focus mark.
So it's 3.25. That's my far mark. Go to my next position, which is 3.0. Right there.
Where is it?
Right
Oh.
there.
So now you'll see when we actually watch this take that he doesn't have that problem anymore, because he knows for a fact that when the fingers are typing that he needs to be on one focus mark, but when Jake actually goes and just starts using the mouse, he needs to be on the other focus mark. It takes all the guesswork out of it. Notice how it's perfectly crisp right now when Jake is using the mouse. Once again, I promise to show you some more extreme close-ups. This is another ECU that we're doing. We're going over his left shoulder, over Jake's left shoulder, staying on the same side of the line, and we're going to go ahead and, well, first of all, clean the keyboard, obviously, because high definition picks up every bit of dust. He's using like a little squeeze blower. There is the actual ECU. It is concentrating on a very small part of the frame, a very small part of a prop or an object or a person. Normally, if we were taking a close-up of a laptop, it would probably have the entire keyboard in the shot. But when I tell the DP I want an ECU or an extreme close-up of the same action, he would know that I just want one key or one group of keys around it. Ambient light outside actually increased because the clouds went away from the sun. So do we relight to balance with increasing outdoor ambient light? Nope. We're just going to go ahead and lower that shade. And we decided to do a light gag on this one as well too. You can see the DP right there plugging in the light gag into the battery. Essentially there's a cable extending from that battery over to the light panel that's sitting on the laptop in front of Jake. And when the DP plugs it in, that's when the light comes on, but it matches with Jake flipping that switch right there on the left-hand side of the computer. And it makes it feel like the screen has actually come on at that point. What if you shoot a certain shot where he starts right there on the desk and then he goes to the bed right there on the right-hand side, but you only like the first part of it, and then when he actually gets into the bed right there, you don't like the action anymore, but you already wasted all that time doing the entire first part of the shot. You don't want to redo the entire thing. You just want to redo the part that you didn't like. So what do? You just frame up the bed, put up a static shot, and let him walk into the shot from the left-hand side without crossing the eye line, and that way you can just cut to it. Okay, the next scene we're going to talk about is Jake's apartment inspiration scene, where he finally finds the inspiration to write, and then he writes all the way up into the morning, and he gets startled by his alarm. So here's where we started with the shot. This is where all the lights were on, and we were kind of trying to play with the ratios and trying to figure out how to make it feel like this is a sunrise scene, even though it's kind of actually in the afternoon right now, and obviously the sun itself is not going to help us make that kind of an illusion. If it was sunrise, it would be coming in from the left-hand side of the frame through the window. So how do we kind of duplicate that kind of lighting? So we decided to go with our instincts, but of course we have a calibrated monitor on the set. So when we go with our instincts, we know for a fact that what we shoot is actually what's being printed to tape. There you go, feels right, just like a sunrise. And the reason being is it's very sourcey. If you had a sunrise, the sun is going to be coming only from one side. You're not going to have any fill light practically in the room at all. And even though it felt like we needed to add some fill light to fill in the shadows, in this particular circumstance we didn't. All we needed is one 200 watt HMI sitting on the desk right next to him on the left hand side, and we tinted the white balance to a warm 3, and it felt right. But then we lowered the camera, and when we lowered the camera we were able to change the perspective completely. The low angle camera empowers the character. This is supposed to be when he's actually writing into the morning. This is about 8 o'clock in the morning, right before the alarm actually goes off. And we wanted it to feel that because he made it through the night, because he was writing all the way through the night, that he was actually empowered as a character. And like I said, we went with our gut instincts on this one, but we had a calibrated monitor on the set to back us up so that we know that, if we actually can see some shadow density in there, we know for a fact that we can actually see into the shadows. And then we actually reduced the light intensity on him from that 200 watt HMI by putting some net in front of it. This is a single black net which just cuts down the intensity of the light by about a half a stop, and it does not affect the quality of the light.